I'm here to tell the story of my brothers, Sean and Ian O'Connor. I'm the oldest of four, so it's myself, and then I have a younger sister, and then my brothers were the two youngest. Sean was older than Ian, and Ian was the baby. Not quite the baby anymore, but you know. We were super close as a family growing up, like all of us siblings. We were pretty tight knit. They were, you know, they were regular little boys. My dad described my brother Sean one time as like a puppy dog, I mean, just always getting into something, always looking for something to do, just full of energy, full of vigor, full of life. Both of them, so alike in certain ways, but also so like different in their own unique ways. In high school, they were good, but they were each kind of like, they were the class clowns, Everyone loved them. They were the cool kids, pretty popular, but they were also like the class clowns. Like they were not, neither of them were scholastic, to say the least. But they didn't need to be because they were charming, So they kind of were able to just get by with the skin of their teeth and their good looks and charm, Definite cut-ups. I mean, they were both just like, Sean especially was just like the life of the party. Super duper quick-witted, like so witty. I mean, he could fire back at you before you could even think straight. He was like coming back at you, And then Ian was just like, just as witty and funny as well, but he was like definitely more sarcastic. You know what I mean? Like sarcasm was his love language, And like we all like the way that we like told each other we loved each other was just by like making fun of each other, I mean, it's what we did. Like, who's the favorite child? Who's the smartest child? Who's the best looking child? Who's the most athletic child? I mean, it was just constant, Like if you really, really loved each other, then you just tore each other up. It's a weird love language. Things were good for a while, but they both ended up, struggling back and forth, I think, throughout the years, like with substances, trying really hard for a really long time, like a lot of their adult lives to get clean, back and forth. And, they were both successful on multiple occasions, but just kind of the regular stuff, getting jobs, finding career paths, that sort of thing, different long-term relationships here and there, like regular, that kind of stuff, like regular people do in their 20s, We were somewhat aware, but it was never to a point where it was crippling. They both had long-term relationships, relatively healthy long-term relationships and jobs. And, we're super close as a family still. So I have 3 kids. So they were both like super attentive uncles. And, Sean was a great father. And, so we were definitely aware when things weren't good, but I don't know if we knew, really the whole of everything. Sean was really self-motivated, and he knew, like, I think the thing with like people like with like addiction, like they don't want to be that way. Like, we come from like a good family, like a regular upbringing. So he didn't want to be like that. So I think when things started to get bad with him, he was able to kind of like pick himself up by his bootstraps and try and get his act together. And he wanted to do it for himself, but he also wanted to do it for his son, and his family. I mean, he was a prideful guy, so, but there were definite times when we were super worried, super worried. I mean, I feel like if you have any affiliation or any experience in loving someone who's an addict, then it's always in the back of your mind. It's kind of crazy just because both of my brothers, when they passed, were just out of rehab. like, I think Sean was like 8 months, maybe. 8 months clean and sober. And Ian was 6 when they both passed. We don't really know the details of it. He was living in South Florida. I think like Boynton Beach. There's just a slew of like rehab facilities and halfway houses down there that apparently are just not super legit, but we didn't know that. And he had just been home about, gosh, it must have been like maybe a week and a half or 2 weeks prior. He had just come back to our area to visit with family, me, my kids, my parents, his son. He stayed at my house with me and my husband and my kids for the weekend. And I think he was at my house from like Thursday to Monday. And he went home, went back down to Boynton Beach, was back down there for about a week. And we got a phone call on a Wednesday morning that he had passed. He was living in transitional housing and didn't go home to his like sober living house with his buddies. He had called one of his friends and said he was having a hard time. And he had called his girlfriend at the time and told her he was having a hard time. And she told him just to come over. But he didn't go to her house.
You don't know where he went, but you know where he didn't show up.
He was at like a hotel. He went to go get, I guess, heroin was his choice vice. And it had, it was laced with fentanyl. My brother's friend who he was working for at the time called our parents and told them. And I think he also called my brother Ian and told him. And I know, like, hearing later that my dad had said, called my husband and my sister's husband and told them what had happened and said, I need you to tell the girls. Like I said, we're all super, super close. But I was at work and my brother Ian didn't have a significant other to talk to. And so he actually called me before my husband had a chance to tell me. And he's the one who told me. He just called me and he said, Rosie, Sean's gone. And I'm like, okay, well, where did he go? He's like, he's gone. I'm like, no, where did he go? And he's like, he's gone, Rose. And I kind of like knew, but I didn't. And I remember telling him, I did the same thing to my dad when he told me Ian passed. I said, I do not have time to deal with this right now. And I hung up on him. And I don't remember what happened. I don't remember. I went back inside, I think, to work. And I don't know what I was doing. I don't know what I was doing. If I was crying or yelling or whatever. But one of the girls that I work with pulled me into the bathroom. And I just remember being like, I think my brother's dead. I'm like, I think that's it. I'm like, I think I need you to call my husband for me. Not big, but, there was a bit of an investigation. I mean, I called the detective immediately, like in those minutes or whatever between when my husband could come and get me and like I don't know, I was waiting for him to come and pick me up. I couldn't drive. And it was a lady and I was talking to her on the phone and I was like I was yelling at her because you're just so in denial. I'm like, I think you've got the wrong guy. And she's like, no, I don't think so. And I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, maybe he like maybe someone stole his wallet. Like, someone probably stole his wallet. Like, he lived in some stupid house with like a bunch of other people in recovery. I bet one of them stole his wallet, like, just like totally like, this isn't like, he's good. He's good. I just saw him. He's good. I'm like, I promise you someone stole his wallet. And no one had stolen his wallet. It was him. There was nothing that they found really on his phone. There was like, I think there was a syringe. Um, that was it. Nothing that they found. I mean, yeah, I don't think there was anything that they found on his phone that they looked into. I think I remember, like, it was 4 years ago. So there was a few things that, like, maybe some phone numbers that weren't normal, but not anything that they really dug into as far as I know. When we lost Sean, we were blindsided. It was so unexpected because we had just seen him. There were moments in time when he wasn't good, when he was struggling, and we were like, please, dear God, please, but when he passed, he was so good. Like, he looked just so healthy. His personality, his vigor, his sense of humor. I mean, his physical appearance, just everything. Like, he had his life, like, he just was like getting it together. He had a great job. Like, he was cleaning his act up, like, finally. I mean, he was talking about, moving back to be close to his son again. And when Sean passed, we were just like shocked, And I think that Ian, I don't think he could handle it. So I think that I don't think he could handle it. Ian drank a lot. We knew he drank a lot, too much. Like, it was an issue. But I never thought like drugs were anything that he was really into. Maybe he'd take Xanax sometimes. That probably wasn't his, but he was like, an anxious person. Obviously he wasn't like using it properly, but drugs were not ever anything that we thought were an issue with him. And we really thought and hoped and prayed, and we had conversations. I had so many conversations with him, like, you can't do this to us. I'm like, we all need you. Mom and Dad need you. My boys need you. Like, get it together, He's like, I won't. And I just, as crazy as it sounds, like, I mean, I knew that he had problems and he had struggles, but I just never thought, I never thought, I just didn't think he would. Almost to the date on the 4-year anniversary of Sean passing. It was 2 days later. Sean passed on June 19th of 2019, and Ian passed on June 21st of 2023. And he had just gotten out of a 6-month recovery program. It was the day after my oldest son's birthday. And my brother Sean passed the day before his birthday. The morning I found out that Ian passed, he was living at home with my parents, and we had all been together the night previously. My mom and dad and my family, it was my son's 21st birthday, so I cooked a nice big dinner and had everyone over. And Ian did not come because he had just gotten home from, like, recently, I think like that Thursday, the Thursday prior to, had gotten home from, his, like, gotten to my parents' house from his sober living facility. And, my son was turning 21, so he wanted to have a drink. So I'm like, I just don't think it's a good idea if Ian's here, in that environment. Cooked a big dinner. And he texted my son at like 10:45 that night and just told him how much he loved him and how he was so proud of him and wished him a happy birthday and, all the things. And then I woke up the next morning to go to work, and my dad called me. It was just a little bit after 7:00 in the morning, which like I said, we're all super close. I talk to my parents all the time, all day long. And he just said, we had big plans for the weekend to take my son and a bunch of his friends to Disney. And he said, I need to tell you something. I don't want it to ruin your weekend. I still want you to take Austin for his birthday. And I'm like, okay. And he said, Ian's gone. I'm like, again, well, where did he go? Like, what, is he in jail? Like, what did he do? Did he just leave in the middle of the night? He's like, no, he's gone. And I think I hung up on him. I was just so mad. I don't know. He smoked something that was fentanyl or had fentanyl in it or something.
How long did it take to find out it was fentanyl?
I think they kind of knew, like, when my parents found him. And I think when the police or coroner got there, they kind of like immediately knew or assumed based on whatever it was, whatever they saw or whatever, I don't know. They didn't even really do an investigation. They didn't. I remember having like a conversation with my dad and him just getting so frustrated with the detective, and he's like, he's not calling me back. He's not doing this. They're not telling me anything. And I'm like, but to these guys, to us, it's one of the most life-changing events we can experience. But to these guys, it's like it's like a dime a dozen anymore, Just it's crazy. It's terrifying. I think for myself, like for my story, is that my brothers were not, people think like they hear someone died of a drug overdose or, an accidental overdose, and they just have this perception of it's like, a junkie in the street who's panhandling and homeless and this, and that's not who they were. You know what I mean? Ian was the handiest guy you've ever met and so smart and loved to fish and so witty and you know what I mean? Like would sit and talk for hours about conspiracy theories with you, and Sean was like funny and vivacious and he loved to dance and they were both could charm the socks off of anyone, like good looking guys. And there's just this stigma now for myself, for my parents to say, like, we lost them to an overdose. It's like people look at you different or they negate your loss. And it's not, they weren't like that. They're two like beautiful men, and amazing brothers and a wonderful father and great uncles and, loving sons. They just, they just battled a demon that was too big for them.